Hey folks, it's Brian. Just finished up our RQG game for tonight. So I figured I'd go ahead and get my session review done. I was thinking that, well, we're doing storm season, end of season phase, a couple of holy days in between. Plus, we're doing the Great Hunt for one of my players. And then we're doing Sacred Time. So we got the Sacred Time phase to do with. I figured that would go fairly quickly. Um, so I was prepping up stuff for our next scenario because I've got something planned for sea season. That's actually out of the GM. I don't call it the GM book, the Game Master Adventures book. So there'll be spoilers next time because we didn't get even close to that. We did stop half an hour earlier, but that's because we were transitioning into actually starting to do something, so we'll just hold it off there. But it took much longer than I was expecting to go through an end of season phase because we do end of season phases fairly consistently. So this shouldn't be something too new. But again, we only play a couple times a month, and it takes us sometimes a couple months to get through a scenario, to do a season. So refreshing can take some time. And again, as I explained to some of my players, this is one of the reasons we're doing the game the way we do it so slow, is because it's a new game for us. And we're trying to learn and understand as we play along. Plus, there's some, for lack of a better word, house rules on the end of season things because you can read it really strict that you can only train or research one thing, period. So if you train in broadsword, then you can't research lore or train or research a stat. Um, or you could make it really loose on their side where you can train and research and train and research. Do two of each every season. And that seemed to me to be too much. So I allow one or the other of one and the other. So you can either train and research a skill or rune, and then you can do the opposite. Whether you're going to do one training during a season phase and one research during a season phase. So you can either train a skill or you can train a stat. And you can either research the stat or research the skill. So if you're training, and that's what we trained in skills this time, so they can research on a stat. That's what they've been doing, kind of thing. And again, it takes 2 seasons of training or research for a statistic to get a chance to go up. So there's some kind of give and take, and it's not clear what the intent is within the module because there's somewhere it talks about training takes a lot of time. That takes, there's actually some verbiage here if I can find it in my notes. Yeah, training all season, one skill or rune, nothing else, is the impression I got out of my initial reading when I made my cheat sheet. Because it takes a lot of time to do that kind of stuff. Well, if you're going to do one thing, that's like nothing. And as hard enough as it is to go up in skills when you only get one check mark a season. And then you get your 4 occupation or cult skills. And there's a fairly in-depth discussion about that in the descriptions of the live play. So got this all covered. And I got to apologize. When I plugged my headset into my laptop for Discord, it popped up asking if I wanted to change. And I said yes. And it took the headphones, but it didn't take the mic. So my laptop mic was what my players were hearing. And there was a couple times where they were saying, hey, you're breaking up or we can't hear you. Or if I face towards the laptop, I'm picking up better. And I was trying to figure out maybe I got a short in my mic somewhere or something. was towards almost the end of the session when I went into Discord and I saw that the mic on my laptop was what it was recording. So if you can't hear me, I'm sorry. But anyway, there's this discussion on trying to, okay, what are these 4 skills that we, occupation and cult skills that we get a check mark for? And technically, I think that you're supposed to make those checks before you actually start rolling for all of your checks. So you can't have an occupation skill that you did a check mark for experience already. For example, during the adventure, we used our broadsword skill, and for the rest of the season, I'm going to be working on my broadsword, so I get, broadsword check kind of thing. But I let it go this time, and I'll probably just let it go from now on. Do one thing at a time. Do check marks, do your 4 skills, this, that, the other kind of thing, when a lot of it kind of intermingles and can be a bit confusing. So, we spent a whole lot of time on that. And part of it was confusion on what occupation skills are and what they're for, and what cult skills are and what they're for. And it has to do with, well, the occupation skills, the bold ones that you roll against for your end of year income. Obviously, that's important to you. You want those to be high, but they don't have to be a certain level. Whereas if you're trying to be a rune lord or a rune priest, those specific skills, generally cult skills, need to be at certain levels. And then there are some skills, like lore skills, that you can't get a check on. All you could do is train for those, or research. And so there's a fairly in-depth discussion about that until the light finally comes on for the player, and then they start putting it all together, and that went fairly well. There was a lot of speaking over each other during this session, but then it's not like we're playing. We're all doing stuff out of the book at the same time. And I tried to, okay, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're doing this, make these rolls, make those rolls, make these rolls kind of thing. I wasn't too successful on that, but that's okay. Sometimes, there were a few times I wanted to say, hey, if somebody's asking a question, I get to answer it. Everybody else, just listen. But there are times when I try to explain it and it's not getting across, but when the player understands it in a different way and is able to explain it in a different way, and clarity comes. So, you've got to give some give and take. So we had the first week of the Great Hunt was also the Tribal Assembly. At the end of the Tribal Assembly, Queen Lika let everybody know that we were going to, well, not everybody, but, the tribe representatives are going to go to Boldholm because Kalir Starbrow, the prince, is going to do the Lightbringer Hero Quest and wants representations from all of the tribes to be there. So, pretty much, all the rune people and all the nobles and a retinue will go. And so Angrilar is our noble, so he'll go and we're in his retinue kind of thing. So that's how all the players got to be there. And I narrated through the whole, she comes out of the hero quest, wounded and bleeding and missing a couple of companions kind of thing. But I had forgotten about doing that until we had gotten to the end of the year phase already, rolling our stuff and things and rolling for omens. We got good omens for next year, but then here comes Killer Starbrow all bleeding and everything. Maybe not. Oh, it was fun. This would have been our second Sacred Time phase that we've done. I can't even remember the last time we did it, but we had to have because we just moved from 1626 to 1627. And we did from 25 to 26 previously. So, try and go one step at a time, keep it even, keep everybody in sync in what we're doing. And there's still some things I'm a little fuzzy on. And it's kind of funny. The PCs don't want children. The characters should want children. That's part of society. You have a responsibility to propagate the species, right? And I even had some rules I had written up in my notebook about having everybody make fertility rune rolls, and and not requiring, but pulling this whole reproduction matrimony stuff out of the player's hands and putting it into the character's hands. But the way these guys were talking, okay, no, don't worry about it, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. One of the players did end up with a little girl. Everybody else was trying to invoke their death rune to decrease their chance of having children. But of course, you fail your death rune inspiration for a modifier, it becomes, the negative becomes a positive, and you're more likely to have children. But hey, and that's what happened. And there was some discussion and concern about your standard of living pretty much takes up normal annual income, which means if you have a bad year, you're going to have to dip into savings. If you don't have savings, what's going to happen to you? That kind of thing. And then how everybody is treated differently. We got a little confused on the cult ties thing because of the whole priest and nobles don't tithe on their lands because they're temple lands, right? But everybody is an initiate of a clan, of a cult, and they owe 10%. They're initiate. They owe 10% of their income to their temple because they're initiates. Period. And so we kind of got that straightened out. Yeah, that could be a little clearer. I was just saying, instead of just directing back to the cult section. Oh, really? Why don't you give me a paragraph or a page number? But once one of the players read that, okay, yes, that's right, remember that. Okay, there we go. Because it's going to change once you become an actual rune lord. Rune priest, 90% of your pay goes to them. But what if all of your pay is going to maintaining your status? And our Beast of Gore says, am I a kept person because I'm a Beast of Gore for the temple? Or do I need to maintain my own standard of living kind of thing? And I can see her point that as a temple guardian, the temple would take care of him. But if that's the case, the temple's not going to pay him either. Right? We're taking care of you. You don't get any money. Your standard of living is taken care of. Don't worry about it. Come inside, eat, sleep. If you want to make money, go hire yourself out for other times on your time off. That kind of thing. So I'll have to discuss that with the player some more and get a better feel for how that works. Because I can kind of see that, but it looks like it's rife with being abused. So that pretty much ended all that stuff. Everybody leaves Bold home. We get the clear wine. They settle back down. The next day, they're called into Queen Laika's presence, or her court. And as they're waiting their turn, out come Harmast and Vasana and Yanioth and Vostor. That group. I'm using them as an NPC. Rivals for the party, because I'm actually planning on pulling them, having a competition of sorts for the dragon scenario. At least that's what I'm thinking. I haven't actually read through the dragon scenario to see how that would work out, but that's what I'm kind of thinking. It's a race. Which one of you guys is better? That kind of thing. Excuse me. So they're brought in. They're introduced to a herder. I already forgot his name. Starts with a V, but it's the cattle raid. Not cattle raid. Yeah, cattle raid. The cattle raid scenario out of the GM Adventures book. And we start talking a little bit about that. They get the assignment. They leave. They're talking to the guy on the way out. And that's when I said, okay, let's just call it quits for tonight here at this point. We've got a mission to work on. They asked a couple of questions about, what are these monsters and that kind of thing. When they come out only at night, that kind of deal. And this next scenario is where I'm transitioning from these prepared modules, or scenarios, into my homebrew stuff. Uh, More on that later. Happy gaming.